It is 1 o'clock on West Coast time. That means it is HugNation time all over the world. So, let's just take a moment to recenter, recalibrate, balance, say a little grace. Take a moment to let go of the day behind you, the shoulds, the to-do list, even your identities, that role of parent, that role of teacher, that role of busboy, that role of whatever you are accountable for. Just for this time we share together right now, let's just let that go and just be present and allow whatever is meant to be received be received. Thank you, universe, for all of our blessings. Help us to be aware of the miracle in every moment. Amen. Welcome! All right. Saw Millie jumped in there at the end, which is like, it's like having a fudge sundae and suddenly someone says, you know what? I think you deserve 2 cherries on top. There's a lot of first-timers here. Welcome. If I will try to be gentle and lather everyone up with something slippery so there's no abrasion or chafing. HugNation has been going on for many years, and I asked a minute ago where everyone was from physically, but that is really just for fun. Grandpa was always got a kick out of seeing where everyone was, because the whole point of HugNation is that it does not matter where your feet are at, it matters where your heart is at, and we share a moment of connection, of recognition of connection, and then extend that on. When he was with us physically, we would do a kind of, let me see, we would do a, man, I'm getting some crazy lighting today, sorry about that. We would do, I would interview him, is that any better? We would interview him for about 10-15 minutes, and just to kind of absorb some of his gratitude and ideas and stories. And then we would do HugNation, and that was multiple reasons for that. One of them was because he had a lot to share, but even if he told the same story over and over, one, we would get the gratitude. 2, having a shared experience is part of this. Because we are physically in different places, we use these tools to share the experience. The voice that you're hearing right now is a sound vibration. It's actual physical vibration that is touching you in your whatever hairs are in your ear. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to go into anatomy. I've already hit the end of my knowledge. But you know, it's an actual shared experience that we then can ride the momentum of that into the more intentional sharing. So when he passed, I got a little confused about how we would replicate that, because clearly it's not like I can just adopt or pretend that I've got 65 years of spiritual path to back up what I had to say. But what we decided to do is do something called a belief buffet, where some idea or story or tools or something about self-growth or spirituality that has helped me in my previous week, I share. And the idea is that it's a buffet. It is not intended to be taken without questioning, and in fact, if you like it, chew on it. If you don't like it, if it doesn't taste right, spit it out. No pressure. It's just to kind of have some ideas and then and share an experience. So this week, gosh, so much is going on. First thing I want to do, because I was reminded in the pre-show, and Carpa then popping in reminded me again, is that I want to ask for your help with something. I'm going to try to stop apologizing so much. Several people have brought to my attention that I tend to apologize for things that I may or may not even have any control over. And after sitting with it and talking with my coach about it, I realized that it's anchored in some old insecurity things. And not just that, it's anchored in my ego. Because when I'm speaking from my true self, I don't have the same attachment to how what I'm saying is is perceived or interpreted. You know, that's not up to me. When I'm in my right mind, then I know that the ideas that I'm channeling are coming from a pure place, and the things I'm saying are coming from a pure place, and if that is received in whatever way, it doesn't matter. So I don't need to apologize or say, does that make sense? And I found myself recently a few times kind of going to that apology or place. And so if you hear me doing that, feel free to either let me know in person or in an email, or just flood the chat room with, own it, dude, own it! Okay, so the topic that I've been writing about a little bit this week is about money. Not really about money, more about wealth or affluence or abundance, or what all those things mean. Because Carpo reframed something for me recently when he said that, he goes, you have, oh, I should have my notes. I think he said you have time affluence. Because I'm in a state right now where I have no clients, I have no income coming in, and therefore I have a lot more time. And so it's an interesting shift from saying I'm not lacking anything, what I have is time affluence. And there I'm spending that time affluence in wonderful ways. I'm allowing myself to write more, I'm allowing myself to connect with my family more and my friends more, and even, you know, as we've seen happening recently, as I've talked about a lot, is the homeless thing that we've been doing, and how part of my ego thoughts and pressures releasing my stresses has allowed me to spend time in ways that maybe previously I thought maybe I didn't have time to do, or wasn't a priority to me. But by coming to a state of floating and feeling that I have time affluence, it's like, well, why not say yes to every opportunity that I have? And so crazy awesome things have been happening from that place. But I wanted to address a couple things related to that, because it's something I'm really struggling with. Carpo can attest to this. Even when I've set aside like a chunk of time and say, I know I have a budget for this, I know I don't need to have income coming in for this amount of time, still these crazy voices of like, you should be working, you should have income, things should be coming in. It's like, it is really hard for me to let go. And there's a lot of sources with money. Let me go back to an old topic that I've mentioned several times about money in general and money as energy. I used to be extremely anti-commerce and anti-capitalism. There was a period of time, about 10 years ago now, when I lived in a webcam house and basically showered on webcam and had my life, my sex life, everything broadcast publicly in exchange for free rent. I made no money, and was trying to make Citizen X, which is the precursor to this Ustream site that we're on right now. The previous version of that, not previous, many technologies past, was Citizen X, the site that I created with Dimitri, and it was amazing. It allowed HugNation to begin. HugNation was an experiment that was born from this technology and this community that we built. In a lot of ways, it was trying to take like Burning Man connections and love-based interactions and take it digitally. And point is, at that time, I was very anti-commerce, and without really knowing it, I think was repelling opportunities and repelling any sort of energetic affluence that wanted to come to me. I did not allow to happen. And it wasn't until that project failed, because we ran out of money, the bubble burst on the first .com, so our investors, you know, kind of pulled out, and then we had to go to the community and say, hey, we need to raise money to pay our server bills, and we did that for a while, and then it just ran out. And it was only going through that big failure, and as I say it, I realized what a cool example of you never know if you're in advance or retreat, or you never know what the value of failure can be. It was only through this failure, this crushing of my dreams of utopia, that I was able to open up and learn that money is not evil. Money is energy. Money is a resource, more importantly. Think of it as a resource. And that if I had more resources, I could have done amazing things. And so it was that kind of switch in my head of thinking this money is tied to selfishness. Money is tied to you know, the competitive nature that capitalism often has, but freeing money itself from those negatives changed my relationship with money massively. And I started seeing money as energy. Not just that, but as I had a client, a pornographer for the, if that matters, that taught me. He's like, how he believed of capitalism as like this perfect, beautiful system, that it was the way, and that money was the way that you communicate with this system. So if people want more of yogurt shops, then existing yogurt shops will get lots of business, and then the commerce system, the economy knows to make more of those. People go, oh, that's doing well, I'll make another one. And so we get, as a culture, what we vote for with our dollars. And that's true in the negative way too. You know, why do we get more Walmarts? Because we're voting for it. And once I started seeing money in that way of like, oh, then every time you use money, even if it's something that you don't want or you feel bad about, you got to shift that in your head. Go, okay, I have to pay my rent. So you don't go, ugh, or you pay your electrical bill or your cable bill. You don't go, ugh. You go, cool. I love having a place over my head. You know, I love, you know, having high-speed internet. I'm happily spending this and saying to the universe, I would like this to continue. And if you can't make that distinction, then you need to think about why you are spending money in that way. That mental shift for me opened up the flow. So then I started thinking, okay, so then if I listen to an MP3 that I like, I want to buy it. I want to buy the CD. I want to put money, I want to tell the universe that I want more of it. If I steal it, then I'm basically lying to the system. So when you pirate something, you're basically taking your vote and telling the universe that you know, don't let anybody know that we want more of this. So when I started thinking in those terms, that I'm voting with my dollar, I'm voting with my dollar, every time I'm spending them, I'm happily. So in the same way now, like I had a friend of mine recently posted online that, hey, I've got a huge collection of Alan Watts MP3s that, you know, let me know if you want them and I'll upload them for you. And I wrote him, I said, I go, that's awesome that you want to share his wisdom because it's fantastic and I think everybody should listen to it. But I'd feel better if you would tell people that if you like it, buy it, you know, vote, tell the universe that this is more of what we want. This is something that, make more of this. We value this. And what happened to me is that by releasing my, I believe, without changing much of what I was doing, financial opportunities started coming to me. And the more I was happily spending money on things that I valued, it allowed me to receive money for my value. And people started seeking out and hiring me to do things, you know, and I could feel good about it. Or I could ask for money and feel good about that, not feel the shame of like, oh, I'm part of the greedy capitalist system. Now, this has gotten interesting in recent months because I have gotten to a place of not having any clients. So technically I still, you know, I still run a business. It's just one that bleeds. And so I have no money coming in, which has really challenged a lot of my optimism and a lot of that energetic stuff. And I've had to really let go, I I have a lot of really deep thoughts of living within my means. And so even though I've got this budget of how much I can spend, it's like cracking away at my sense of peace every time I'm spending and it's not coming in. So I'm having to really go back to these thoughts, really going back to these beliefs that I know to be true. And even what I wrote about this morning was about that I'm becoming aware of many types of wealth. In the same way that I just said about, or a lot of people are talking here about the free time or freedom is a type of wealth. I know people that own homes, but because they own a home, they have to make whatever $4 grand a month to pay their mortgage. So there's an expense beyond $4 grand a month. That's a freedom cost. In the same way, people that are accruing massive bank accounts, but are not taking care of their bodies, or they're not taking care of their relationships. Because, as someone said earlier, that money, it can't buy happiness, but it sure can avoid being miserable. Well, that's a good point, and I think that what it goes back to is that someone wrote today as a comment that actually was Wandering Angel. He said that wealth is having your needs met. Someone else said, I feel rich when I have enough, but how do you know when you have enough? Ah, that's the rub. That's the problem when the societal pressures start getting to you, like, well, what if this happens? Well, what if this happens? You need to have a stockpile of money for this. You got to stockpile money for this. You got to stockpile money for this. And so you start to feel like, well, there's no such thing as enough. And I think what that leads you to in terms of your looking at the big picture is the big picture status quo belief of security. And security for the future is a myth. You cannot, we are never secure. We are never safe. We are never protected. We can have degrees of safety and degrees of protection from certain things, but you cannot cover the world in foam and mattresses and make sure that you will never be injured or hurt or robbed or the system won't collapse. Those are just impossible. So if you believe, if you're gonna make your faith in the commerce system providing you security by having a big bank account, that's fine, but that's faith. You can have just the same kind of relationship by having faith in the flow of resources, in that your needs are always going to be met, in that that the universe will provide you what you want. I've gone through my valley of darkness in terms of hating all things Christian and now being reintroduced to things that Jesus said without the Christian stigma. And there's some great quote about, look at the birds in the field, and they are always taken care of. Are you not more worthy than the birds? I sometimes go back to the state of like, okay, if I lost everything and offended all my friends, what's the worst case scenario? Let's say I was homeless. Ooh. That's survivable. Anyway, I started this talk without really knowing where I was going with it, but really just to address this kind of dilemma that I'm now working through, which is that the belief that all my needs are met, affluence is being open to affluence coming to me, at the same time recognizing that my current path, if I look at the math involved, there is an end date to when my money will run out. So I'm struggling with how much do I adjust my expenses in order to extend that. For example, if I'm thinking about right now moving out of my home and moving into a room someplace so that I can reduce my costs. Because if I can save, $1,000 a month, that's the same thing as earning $1,000 a month, right? My dilemma to myself is that showing a lack of faith? I don't know. I mean, am I contradicting myself in even making that plan? Or am I being smart? Or am I making a compromise in terms of safety, security versus faith in a supplying universe? I don't want to be so adherent to my principles that I am like the guy who's on the roof during the flood when a boat comes up and he says, a boat goes, "Hey, get in the boat." And he says, "I have faith, my God will save me." He's like, "All right." And another boat comes by, and now the water's at his waist, and he's like, "Get in the boat." He's like, No, God will save me." Finally, a boat comes by and he's like this, and he's like, "Dude, get in." He's like, No, God will save me. And he's at the pearly gates, and God's like, "Well, hello." And the guy's like, "What happened, dude? I had so much faith." And God goes, "Dude, I sent you 3 fucking boats." So, is this kind of awakening, this thought process of how I can reduce costs, is that a boat? Or, I don't know. The reality is I do have faith, and I'm just kind of figuring out I'm just feeling the flow of the current and how that relates to every current situation as it happens, and balancing my socialization and my ego goals and my who I truly am. I mean, I know that when I sit with my true self, I know that there is no question everything will be perfect. Even if a pack of wild dogs busts in my door right now and rips me to shreds, I mean, I believe that that's exactly what is supposed to happen. That being said, I'm gonna lock the door and then use the restroom, hit urination, and then we're gonna have a hug. So I'll be right back.
You only live once. Enjoy the color.